topics that take up most of the real estate in the Torah, if you like. The number of chapters describing the tabernacle and the worship service and serving inside the house, so to speak. So the furnishings are also associated with the three Levite brothers. I can't recall the numbers of their names specifically. The one carried the support structure, the other one carried the furnishings, the coverings, the other one carried the artifacts, the Ark of the Covenant and all the menorah and all those things. So you get the ranks within the house, serving in the house. And if you think about the comparison, Moses to Yeshua, Moses just represent the chief one ruling the house, and his brother Aaron was the high priest. So, and then you have the priesthood, which are those three sons of Levi, who basically make up the priesthood, who has those specific tasks. And then you have the normal priests who had a turn to serve, and they rotate through year after year. And then you get the people who are served. So that the first thing you notice here is that a leader is a servant. And if Yeshua is the top-ranking leader, it means that he's the pinnacle of what servanthood is all about. And that's also what we read in the Brit Chadashah, that he served unto death. He gave his own life. Serving is about giving, and giving is about providing whatever is required to fill the gaps within the house, within the household, to furnish them, to equip them, to make them complete. So furnishing the house is symbolically of having the furnishings, which is the Ark of the Covenant, the golden altar, the showbread, the menorah, and then the outside the laver and the brazen altar. So all of those things are furnishings inside the house. And the purpose of a furnishing is to facilitate a function. So the furnishings aren't there just to look pretty. They have, each one of them have a specific function. And as the priest or the servant interact with the furnishings, they perform worship service. They facilitate worship service, sacrificial service, within the context of the house. So the furnishings are the tools of the priests, who are the servants who serve in the house and who serve the people who serve the house. And ultimately, collectively, they serve Yahweh through facilitating all those things within the house. So Yeshua is the highest priority, then the high priest, and then the priesthood, all those three groups that I mentioned. And then the normal priests, and then the people after that. And the people also represent the house, because the outer court is made from white linen, and that would represent the people. And that's where they assembled, is within the outer court. The holy place was where the priests went in. The Holy of Holies was where the high priest went in. And the Ark of the Covenant is also the throne of the king, the seat of the king, the presence of the king. And so in the same way, we see the symbolism of the worship component of the house, which is the priesthood and high priest and serving and facilitating worship. And then you get the royal house, which is the king with his council members and his servants and everybody serving, with his commanders and the armies and all that. That's another layer that's laid on top of it. But the house is the same house. The palace is also the temple, or the tabernacle. Now what we also saw previously is that the footstool is also the temple or the house, the feet. Now where else did we read about the together within a country. So in the same way, the state government systems across the world also submit to the religious authority in our generation, which is represented by the Pope. And then, of course, most of the Christian denominations, I won't say all of it, most of the major Christian denominations also went to the Vatican and kissed the hand of the Pope. I saw a video on that. So they all submit under the authority, which is the religious authority of the Pope. And that represents the seat. Now the seat is also the feet, or the house of worship. So the earthly house of worship, they worship at the feet of the statue. And this statue, basically all kingdoms rolled into one, and the history of all the kingdoms who made up this current kingdom, which are represented by the feet, is also founded within the concept of a house of worship, which of course is the whore of Babylon. The whore, female, is always a church or a religious system that is referred to. And Babylon is mixing confusion, that mixing confirm the iron and clay mixture. It's also the mixing of religion and state, and there's an agenda to establish this kingdom with that two components mixed in together. And that's the Babylonian system that Yeshua is going to destroy. So the stone is going to hit the feet. So the stone is going to destroy the religious system. And when the religious system is destroyed, also the political system or the kingdoms of the world will be destroyed as well, because they are part of that feet system. And they all submit under the house of worship of Babylon, which is symbolized by the whore of Babylon. So that's just all the symbolism put together regarding the house, regarding the feet, the furnishings, the authority levels, and everything that exists. And then you have the real, which is Yeshua, his priesthood, he is the high priest, with the people that make up the house. And then you get the counterfeit, which is the Antichrist, the false prophet, the beast system, that make up the other house. And of course, the people that submit under that, which make the household of the Antichrist versus the household of Yeshua or Yahweh. And the two houses are opposing one another at the end times. But Yahweh, as we read in Revelation, will come and destroy that system and establish his kingdom. And the cleansing process of fire will take place to prepare the place, to cleanse it, to purge it, before he bring down the house in Revelation 22, referring to the New Jerusalem, which is the bride, also the bride, the female representation of the household, which is the system of worship, which is also contained in the royal priesthood, the high priest of Melchizedek and all that. So all of those things within the house, the furnishings. You can also say that the people serving are also sort of a furnishing, part of the preparation. So when our Jewish brothers, they are currently preparing and starting worship again. So they trained up their Levites. They've got all the artifacts. They've got a mobile altar. They've got everything in place, all the furnishings, to start the worship process, which is the daily sacrifices. And that's the sign that's in Daniel and also in Matthew 24. One of the things that need to happen for the Great Tribulation to start. So we look at the sign round about every Passover. What are our Jewish brothers doing? Are they going to sacrifice on the holy place, which is basically the Temple Mount? Will those sacrifices be stopped? If it has, if it's going to be stopped, then you wait for the second witness. We need something that statue, whether it's a person proclaiming something, it will be something opposing to Yahweh. That's the abominable thing. And it's not the mosque, or what do you call it? The Muslim worship symbol. It is to do with the pattern that you read in the Book of Maccabees. And the pattern give us the detail that back in the day it was a statue of Zeus. So that was a physical, symbolic symbol. And there's a lot of speculation. I know back in the day, I think it was 2005, 6 maybe, I did a lot of research based on the number 666, and that's the number of a man, and it's also the number that counts up, or the name that counts up to 666, according to someone's interpretation, is Charles. So Prince Charles was basically labeled, he might be the abomination of desolation, or the image that's going to be set up in a holy place. And the reason they said that, because they made a statue of Prince Charles. You can Google it, it's there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. You have to wait for the prophecy to be fulfilled to put your finger on, yes, that is fulfilled. Prior to that, we can only speculate. So prophecy in nature just give us a rough idea of what to look out for. I've got a document I've prepared that's over 70 pages long, where I captured multiple people's views on the end times, and they all have credible, cases that come in from scripture, wherever they landed on it. But I can't really say which one I agree with, because prophecy need to be fulfilled to see which direction we will go. But having that said, having all the understanding of what believers in Mashiach is thinking about regarding the end times, really give you some ideas that you can look out for. And it's not necessarily that they're false prophets or they're this or they're that. It's not about that. It's just people trying to interpret the prophecies and try to see how they can fit. And sometimes they do, but they don't come to pass. There are a couple of them who actually didn't come to pass. It's a couple of years after that I made that document. So I probably need to go through it again and just update it and see what new ones are there. Just for my reference point. But I don't have a specific viewpoint that is cast in stone. I've got a few that's got a high probability in my mind. I've got one view that's totally out there, that's my own view that I haven't heard anybody else teach on. So the chance that I'm wrong is very, very high. But at least it's a point of view, and only real-time events will confirm whether it's true or not. Not to give someone a pat on the shoulder, well done, you nailed it. It's not about that. It's about watching. It's about being a watcher. What do you watch out for? Oh, we can watch out for this or that, or maybe this. Let's see what will happen. What do we need to have as a foundation? Are the prophecies that's not yet fulfilled. Very important to know all these prophecies if you want to become a watcher. Now, watcher is basically just someone who look out and see what the reality out there and how it matches with scriptures. There's a couple of good people that's credible that are currently looking at events around the Middle East. People have a different angle and point of view and different information. Specifically, people living in Israel will have a more accurate take on prophecy regarding the land than us Westerners just observing from the other side of the fence, because we don't really have the news and the insights that they have. They live, they know what's happening. We just get whatever the media is feeding us regarding worldly news. So we can't really say. So putting that aside, back to the house. So the house is also an end time theme, because the house referred to the New Jerusalem according to Revelation 22. So thinking about the future king, the future prince, the future judge, and also the future high priest Don't know if he serves already in the house. I don't know if there's any scripture for that. Maybe there is. But according to my understanding and the pattern of Hebrews chapter 1 through 3, it's all future things that we need to watch out for. And also the future house. And there's furnishing taking place. So the thing I want to emphasize here is the furnishing of the house. Now you are the house. You are a living stone within the house, and you are currently being furnished. You are currently being equipped. You're currently being cleansed and sorted out and get more knowledge and foundational truth, so that the house will stand at the time of the great tribulation that is coming. So the house, in the context of leaving Egypt and entering the promised land, was in the context of a tabernacle, a mobile house. In the same way, us being scattered across the whole world, we're also assembling small groups. So we are small tabernacles, and we are also mobile. So we fit the same pattern. And we, as we enter the promised land, will then enter into the permanent house, which is represented by the New Jerusalem, which will be established on Mount Zion, and then we will worship the King, and we will worship, facilitate worship through high priest and priesthood. Whether you are part of the priesthood or not, whether you're part of the bride or not, that is part of this life, where you will receive a reward. The reason I'm saying that is that some people will be called least in the kingdom. So they are in the kingdom, but they're called least. So they're the lower entities, so they're just normal people. And then you get people who are called the greatest in the kingdom. And the greatest is basically those who serve under the high priest, those who serve in the royal chambers of the king, those who serve and rule over nations, those things we read in prophecies. And they are called the greatest. So the level of your reward, which is basically the parable of the talents as well, is based on what you've done with what He's given you. If He gave you 1 talent, it's the basic truth, and you multiply that, so that means that you convince other people of the same truth, and you know more than yourself believing the same thing, but you're faithful in that, you'll get a pat on the back. Good, well done, my servant. But they only have 1 talent. They probably didn't embrace the festivals, they didn't do certain things because they didn't understand it, or they weren't taught that as growing up in a denomination. Now, I believe the 5 talents, of course, is the Torah, where you receive the full revelation of the whole Torah and Mashiach, and He's the Torah Himself. So that means that all His commandments are still intact, all His festivals are still intact, His Sabbath is still intact, everything is still intact. It's just the way it's facilitated that changed. Because of the priesthood, the high priest, and the lack of the temple, the commandments can't be executed as per it's been written. So we're in a state of exile. And in a state of exile, certain commandments don't apply because there's no temple, there's the priesthood, or whatever the case might be. So it doesn't mean those commandments are abolished. It just means they are on hold. They will be re-established when the new house will be established on Mount Zion. And then the royal priesthood will serve under the high priest of Melchizedek. And guess what the priests do? Go read about the tabernacle, the house. What do? They serve in the house. They facilitate sacrifices. I also made a document called Do You Believe the Prophets? Now all of that is a collection of prophecies that apply to the time frame after the second coming. What will happen then? Now there's prophecies about sacrifices. There will be sacrifices in the New Jerusalem. The festivals will be kept in the New Jerusalem. And there's more than one prophecy that confirm that. So in saying that, you can ask yourself, why don't we do it now? Why do we say it's abolished now and then it will be re-established? It basically tells me judgments. And a judgment is the only thing that can change in the Torah. Not a ordinance, not a commandment. They can't change. It's the word of the king. A verdict or a judgment can change. How? By extending mercy. By not putting the judgment upon the person, but placing it upon someone else. Because a judgment has to do with paying a debt. If someone else come and pay your debt, you're a free man. And that's why we are set free from the judgments. The judgments have been nailed to the cross because Yeshua paid the penalty, paid the price of the bounty that was upon your head and everybody else's head because of sin. He paid that. How can he pay that? With what? With his blood. Why blood? Blood equals life. Life is the most valuable thing of all creation. And the one with the highest authority has got the highest value of life. Just like the king has got more value than a commoner, in the same way Yeshua, the King of Kings, has got the highest value because he's got the highest authority. And his life equals his blood. He's the most valuable commodity in heaven and earth. And he gave that to redeem. Redeem means to pay, to exchange something for something else. And he redeemed us. He paid that high penalty, that high price with his life, his blood, his currency, which is the highest value, so that those things can be nailed to them. So the concept of nailing to the cross is he basically died. He gave his life. That's what the phrase nailed to the cross represents. It doesn't mean that there's a big cross and everything you don't like about the Bible, you go and take a piece of the Bible, you tear it out, you take a nail, like Martin Luther, and you nail it to the cross. Oh, there's another passage, I'm going to tear it out, and you can nail that to the cross. That's not what it means. Nailing to the cross means to die. The symbolism of death. The symbolism of death is redemption. Redemption has to do with payment. Payment has to do with currency or value. Value has to do with the highest value, which is life, which is contained in the blood. That's why death equals payment. Now, back in the day, in serving in the house, they had animals and the blood of animals, which is also a form of life. And the reason why an animal's blood was sufficient for an individual was because of what they call the animal. An animal is a nefesh. A worldly person is a nefesh. A worldly person who accepts Yeshua and receive his spirit becomes a neshama. So a nefesh is good enough to pay for a nefesh. The life of a nefesh, an animal, a clean animal, is good enough to pay for another clean animal, which is a human, which serves Yahweh, who sinned, to take care of that sin. But you have to repeat that over and over and over again, because from the one sacrifice you have to walk clean, and if you sin again, oh, I need to go and make another sin sacrifice, so I need to find another nefesh to pay and redeem me. Otherwise I have to pay myself with my own blood. And that's why certain judgments ask for your life, because that's how severe they are. And that's the system that Yahweh created. So if you criticize his system, you're criticizing him. Please don't do it. You offend the Father if you do. Don't do that. Yeah, so it's all has to do with the house and all that. So the furnishing, going back to that, we need to be prepared as the bride. How do you furnish a bride? Beautiful dress, beautiful hair, perfume. Esther, perfect example. She spent 12 months preparing, 6 months with water and soaps and whatever, and then 6 months with perfume and ointments and oil and anointings before she can come before the king. So it's a process. It's not just something, oh, I'm just going to comb my hair, brush my teeth off, I'm not going to meet the king. No, it's about a spiritual preparation. It's a long process. It took us 6 months to bath, and then 6 months to put up makeup and anointing herself with perfume. That sounds a bit ridiculous, but just making a little foolish statement around, give you the idea of how we miss the mark regarding preparation. So yourself prepared, you actually place oil in your lamp as well. And when the groom comes, you will have oil to burn. You have something to show, which will be your character. You can't buy it, it needs to be formed within you. So you need to be furnished in order to have the oil. So I think I said enough about Hebrews 3 verse 3, the building of the house, the furnishing of the house. And the other last thing I want to say about it is Yeshua who built the house. It's Yeshua who furnished the house. It is He who take you on this journey of cleansing. Paul revealed it to us, saying the washing of the water of the word. But we need to interact with Him in order to be cleansed. So it doesn't help you stand before a bowl of water and say, oh, the water now needs to come and wash me. No, the water is there for you to use to wash yourself. Yeshua is the water. So if you don't interact with Him, if you don't interact with His word, you won't be cleansed. He's not going to do it for you. He's providing you all the things and all the means for you to cleanse yourself, but you have to extend your hand, take the water, take the word, apply it to your life, and cleanse yourself. That's part of the furnishing. So it's not Yahweh's problem if you're a sinner, it's your problem. He gave you all the tools. He said to Lazarus, or the rich man, oh, go and see my people and tell them and appear to them and whatever. And then Yeshua said, you've got Moses and the prophets, you've got the Torah and the prophets, you've got the Tanakh. They've got the Tanakh. That's good enough for salvation. And that's the words of the Messiah, Yeshua. The Tanakh is good for salvation if you apply it. Now what's in the Tanakh? It's the commandments of God, as well as the revelation of who Yeshua is, the redemption, the blood, all of that. All of that's in the Tanakh. So everything you need is in the Torah and the prophets. So that's what we need to furnish ourselves. That's what we need to prepare. So weekly we try to get together and go through the Torah cycle, or go through whatever passages we go through to cleanse ourselves. That is furnishing the house. That's building the house where we allow Mashiach to build the house and to prepare His house for His coming. He said, I'm going to my Father to prepare a place for you. That house is twofold. It's a heavenly house, which is the New Jerusalem. It's also consisting of people. So He's doing a preparation work in you. He is preparing you as part of His house, as part of the building stones of His house. That's how He's preparing His house. Alright, so I think that's enough for today. So I hope you have a lovely day. I will speak to you again later on as I go through this Hebrews chapter 3. Have a lovely day. Shalom.